Okay, what I've created this time is something I call my vintage grunge album. I was kind of inspired by the idea for this album, a little closer look, by some various videos I saw on YouTube where they were doing these vintage albums, and some of them are really, really nice. What I did with this was I did a basic signature. Signature is a section that goes in a book, and this is sewn. So I took, let's see, about 4 sheets of 8.5 by 11 paper, and you just fold it, cut it for the size that I want it, and I believe this size is about a 6 by 6. And then you layer them, fold them in half, layer them together, find the center, and just stitch it. I punched 3 holes, ran my stitching through. This is actually a waxed thread that you can buy, but you don't have to use wax thread. You can use whatever you have. Wax thread just means it goes through the holes a little easier. And then knotted it. Now before I did that, before I assembled it all, I aged the paper. And the way I did that was a technique where you just take the page, you wet it, mist it with water from a water mister kind of thing. And when it's all nice and wet, very carefully crumple it all up into a ball. Compress it down, so the tighter you compress it, the better the wrinkles are going to come out in it. And then lay it out flat, and then I just took an iron and went over it with the iron to flatten it out. That gave me all the nice little creases. Now the color of this paper that I started with was just an off-white, but then I took walnut ink stain, and you can get this in various formats. You can get it as a Tim Holtz Distress ink pad. You can get it as a liquid stain, and what I had was I had some walnut stain crystals that are a powder. You just mix them up with some warm water. I put them in a spray bottle and just sprayed the sheet. Then I blotted it with a Kleenex or a paper towel and dried it by pressing it with my iron. Again, use an iron that you're not going to use on your clothes. Have a dedicated cheap iron just for your paper crafting. Otherwise, you're going to get stain on your clothes the next time you iron them. And that gave me this brownie aged look. And just to add a little bit more grunge to it, I used a Tim Holtz Distresser, which looks like, let me pull it out from my stuff. Looks like this. Has all these little ridges on it, and you just put the paper into the side of it and just pull it through, and it kind of tatters the edge of the paper, so it gives it that vintage aged look. On the cover, I stamped just a collage stamp in black, and I just went through all my store of embellishments. I got about 3 containers full of these things that when I happen to see them, they look interesting, so I picked them up. And I picked them up in a variety of sources. You get them at Michael's, I get them at the dollar store, I get them at Walmart, wherever. The cheaper the better. And just started playing with what I had. So this album only took me an hour or so to make after I had ironed out each of the pages and sewn them together. So on this cover, I've got some flowers that I aged with the same walnut ink and dried with a heat gun, some washi tape. These were some pre-made little postage stamps that came in a set of embellishments. And then I dotted each of the flower centers with some stickles. And then each of the pages I threw together with whatever I had laying around. So some more washi tape. These are kind of a type of stylized sticky notes that I bought somewhere. I don't remember where. I just glued them down so they're a place for journaling. More washi tape here. I made a pocket. Now the way I made this pocket was I took an old book that I had laying around. I pulled some pages out of it. I mounted it onto a piece of black cardstock, and I used some, what do they call it? They call it a lacquer. Where is it? This is what I use. Glazing medium. That's it. You could use glossy accents. You could probably even use Mod Podge for this. But I just put down a layer of that onto the black cardstock, stuck this page on top of it, and then I coated the whole thing again with this material. Let it dry, and it doesn't take long to dry. And in fact, it actually aged the color of the paper a little bit because it picked up some of the black from the cardstock I stuck it to and pulled it through to this paper that was already kind of an old white because it was an old book, but just aged a little nicer. And then I tore along the edges and put this piece in, just glued it along the edge here to make a pocket. I had gotten some of these somewhere. I don't know where I picked them up. Little cards that have little sayings on them. Once upon a time, 100% authentic, genuine, or article, original, whatever. And just stuff those in. So again, those could be for some journaling, place to put pictures, whatever. On the next pages, what I did was I had, again, in my set of embellishments, I had these little envelopes, and so I just used it as a pocket, glued it on. I cut the little top flap off it because for some reason on these ones the flap was on the front of the card as opposed to the back of it. So that wasn't going to work very well for a pocket, so I just cut that off. These are from Tim Holtz, these little tickets, and you just punch them out. And you can either use them singularly by separating them, or in this case I just left them attached together to fold them, because then inside they become a place where you could write or put pictures or whatever, and just stuck those in this little envelope. More washi tape. On this one I have found a paper doily. I cut it in half, then I fold it in half because it actually wraps around this page to the other side. It was a white paper doily. To change the color, I just used some Victoria Velvet Distress ink from Tim Holtz and his walnut stain ink pad, distress pad, and just blended them across the doily. And when it had dried, just folded it in half and glued it and made it into a pocket. Inside the pocket, again, these are tickets I picked up somewhere. I don't know where. They have something on them on the one side. The other side is blank. So again, you could write on these. And actually, just as a side note, you know, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get these embellishments again, and once I've used them, they're used up, but they might be interesting for something else, for another project at some point. So what I did was, and this is probably illegal, so if anybody tells on me, I'll never speak to you again, I scanned them with my scanner and printed them out on sheets, and they're ready to go. I can cut them out anytime I want to use them again. Here's a little cheap flower package of these I got at the dollar store. Again, I walnut stained it just to distress it a little bit. Had this brad with an initial in it. It's an S. I don't know how well you can see it. Hold it back there a little bit. Here, I'll pull it right up. There, you see it's got an S on it. And just put it down with a pop dot on the center of the doily. On the next page, similar thing I did on here. Here again, that technique I already mentioned using the book page and some more of those little memo cards or postcards. On this page, washi tape, some of those stamps you saw on the cover, and I distressed them a little bit by running some black ink pad around the edges of it to lift it up. And what I did here was, I actually, and this was an accident, but doesn't this kind of look like a piece of mahogany? Piece of wood on these two things? Well, they're not. It's simply I cut these out, these shapes out on off-white cardstock with my Cricut, and then I used a combination of Tim Holtz's distress stains. I think I used aged mahogany and walnut, and I just blended them across, and it gave me sort of that faux wood grain stain. I'll hold it up a little bit closer so maybe you can see. Get the light on it. There we go. So I thought that was kind of a cool effect. This next page is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek page. Again, I used the page from a book, same technique, glued it down as a pocket. But what I did here was, you pull this out and it's attached to a another shape for writing or adding a picture or whatever, and you could use both sides. But here what I did, you see what it says? Too cute for you. Too cute for you. Just my way of being a little funny here. These were Tim Holtz as well, little cards, little playing cards, that kind of thing. I bought them some time ago. I don't know where. Well, yes I do. I bought them at Joann's in the States when I went to Florida in February. And that's the first time I really used them, but it just happened to be when I was pulling through the letters, I came up with this Too Cute for You, and I thought, what the heck, let's do that. This was a pre-made envelope. I've had it for years somewhere sitting in my stash, so I got it out. It came with this little saying on a rectangular piece of paper. I tore strips off of it to age it, went around it with a black ink pad, and this flower is another one like the ones you saw before that I had stained with the walnut ink. Same ones from the same package from the dollar store, brad in the center, and then I just basically grunged it up a little bit by wiping up some of the excess ink that was on my craft mat from the walnut stain, and just gave this kind of little dirty look to it. These next two pages, again, you see some more of what was left of that book that I had, or that page from that book that I had torn before. Some more of those tickets that I told you about before. I'm using them as pockets in this case. Another one of those flowers. But in here, I just simply took some pre-made artist cards, but you could just use cardstock. But I happen to have these laying around. They're already pre-cut. And I stamped them. This one with a collage stamp, and this one with a single stamp for a butterfly. And I tore this card and aged it around the edges as well. And again, for journaling, for pictures, whatever. Same on the page beside it. And then the last page, again, some of those little sticky notes that I had, some washi tape, and I just used a collage stamp, again, the background, which is fake writing basically, stamped it first and then put these onto the back of this. And then the back page has the same collage on it that the front page had as well. Actually, my original idea was to make a set of these and then sew them into a larger book, which I might do later on. But it was a way to kind of go through your embellishment stash, because, you know, we get tons of that stuff and never know what we've got, and kind of pull out things that have a similar theme to them and throw them all together. So this was really easy to make. Like I said, after I did the distressing of the actual pages themselves and had them sewn together, embellishing it took probably an hour, if that. So I hope you like that. That's my vintage grunge album.